Good morning, Colts Nation. Welcome back to another edition of the No Horsing Around podcast brought to you exclusively by the Lounge Room Network. I'm your host, Stephen Burton, and I am joined today by my new co-host. We made the announcement on Twitter. He put it out. I put it out. We're really excited. Zach Boyd is here. Zach, you want to tell everybody hi?
Heck yeah, man. Hey, I'm just excited, Stephen, to be a part of this. I've been listening to you along the way, all along, and I'm just excited to be a part of this. Jump in, talk Colts football. That's what I love the most. And I'm most excited to talk about this draft. It was a big build up, and we all just kind of got to this point where we finally, all the hype is over. Now we can talk about it. We've had a chance to take a deep breath, and I'm just excited to talk about it with you. So I'll let you kick it off, and we'll just go through and grade everybody out and see where we stand.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm excited to have you. We've literally, since we decided that Zach was going to come on, I think we've talked almost every day. For those who watch the live stream from the Lounge Room Network, periodically throughout that, if you saw me looking down, it was me texting with Zach during the draft too. So we're really excited. We're super excited to go through the draft picks. And you guys, like always, too, we're sitting out there. Make sure you go on, rate, review, subscribe, share. You're going to find it in all the areas. You'll find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. I think we're even on Audible now. You can find it anywhere that you're looking for it. So, let's just jump in, Zach, because we're going to talk. We don't have as many picks as we normally do. Normally, Ballard has a ton more, but we have some interesting ones. It was a really interesting draft. Obviously, right off the bat, you have our first pick. Kwity Paye. I'm going to let you lead it off. I can't think of a bad thing to say about him, but I want to hear what your thoughts are too.
Yeah, so Stephen, I kind of went through it and I did my own little thing. I kind of gave every player that we're going to talk about today a letter grade. And for me, I gave it a B plus. And the way I justified this was, obviously it's a position of need, right? Everybody knows that we needed an edge. Going into this, I think we talked about left tackle, edge, cornerback. Those were three positions that maybe we hit on. And Ballard right off the gates, Kwity Paye kind of falls down a little bit. And he's right there. And for me, I give him B plus only from the standpoint is I feel like I would have taken Christian Darrisaw in that position. But at the end of the day, Chris Ballard's the man who makes the right decisions. That's why I'm sitting here doing a podcast and he's in charge of the Indianapolis Colts. But a B plus, I think it's a very solid pick. I think really with him, the thing, Stephen, that sticks out to me the most is the fact that I think you're going to get a good, solid football player. I don't know that he ever turns out to be this elite, NFL elite edge rusher, but I think you got one damn good football player. He's got his head on his shoulders. He's, Chris Ballard, he's a Colt guy, and he's a 3-down guy. You don't have to worry about him being a liability when it's in the run game. You don't have to drag him off the field. He's going to be out there, and he's probably going to bring some juice to that position. And I think we needed that, man. I think we needed to upgrade that position. So all in all, I'm pretty satisfied. So I gave him a B plus. I was a little long-winded there, Stephen, but what do you think, man?
No, you're good. For those who don't know, like I said, we were texting during it. So I knew beforehand that when Kwity was sitting there that Zach was a little hesitant, especially with Darrisaw there, because we talked right after the pick too, that was something that we were looking at. And I think it's interesting to kind of touch on that part is to hear the interviews after the draft with Ballard saying they didn't really, obviously a question is always, they didn't draft really anybody. But to hear Ballard talk, they didn't really have any of them graded that highly. So it sounded like they had Kwity really highly rated. I go B plus A, probably an A, not maybe an A minus. His character is off the charts. And his football intelligence seems to be there too. For those who haven't seen it, I think I tweeted something out. Go and watch like his ESPN special. It's 10 minutes. Man tears, they come. Oh my God. He checks all those boxes, to be the blue card player. His agility is just insane. I want to temper people's expectations because we kind of know that it takes 2 to 3 years, most of the time it seems, for a pass rusher to really hit, unless they are, like you were saying too, those elite ones, those Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald, they hit right away. And he may not be that, but I think it helps too that it was a big time position of need. He was my number one edge going into the draft. So I mean, I was thrilled. Darisaw was sitting there. That was really enticing. My favorite player in the draft went way higher than I ever thought he would. Those who listen know it's J.C. Horn, and I was shocked that he went as high as he did. But I mean, I give it an A because it is a position of need. I feel like he was probably, for me, he was the best pass rusher in the draft. But that's also, and I know, it's picking and choosing, nitpicking. I didn't have Jalen Phillips high because I flag him because of his medical. The concussions, 4 concussions in 11 games. Everyone's heard me say that repeatedly. Huge concerns. I wouldn't have taken him as high as the Dolphins did. But then again, also I had Quiddy higher. So I mean, I'm going to go in A. I think we're pretty like-minded on it, on where he hits. So let's go to round 2, because this is kind of where I feel like it gets a little bit more juicy for people, because people were really, really shocked at this pick. And I'm going to attempt to say his name, and I've tried to practice it. I'm pulling it up because I want to make sure that I'm looking at it when I say it. Okay, so it is Deo Adingbio. Is that right? Adingbio? Did I say it right?
I think so, but your guess is as good as mine, Stephen. I'm glad you went first because I did not want to.
I'd just say Deo. We'll just go Deo.
We're going to go with Deo. That works best.
So, I mean, I'm interested to hear you. I mean, I live in Nashville. I've been to Vandy games. I know who he is. But I also know that a lot of people were really, really surprised. And a lot of people are not happy about it. So let's let you go. I want to hear what you have to say, see kind of where your head's at. I know you've watched a lot more on him after the pick, and I think you're coming around to my side maybe on the feeling. So let's see what you got.
So here's where I'll start this at. So 2 years from now, when we go back and listen to this podcast, first of all, I want to tell everybody Chris Ballard's going to prove me completely wrong. Okay. But
he tends to do that.
Speaking, I gave him probably the lowest grade, honestly. I gave him a C+. And the only reason to be, not a knock on him as a player. I felt like, in my opinion, and I'd like to say I'm an educated, I'm a professional nerd. I'm not, I don't do this for a living. Love football, and that's all we do. But at the end of the day, I think I have a pretty good, sound football mind, and I didn't love the pick, and here's why I didn't love the pick. We didn't have a 3rd round pick this year, and I felt like in that instance, I just felt like we could have done better to facilitate that pick, whether we traded back and we got an extra pick. I just don't feel like that he was the best possible player out there for us. But now, however, I will say this: there was a huge run on tackles right before us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question: do you think that run where Raduns and Cosme were both gone, like before? I think they were high. I think those were possible picks, and they were gone. Literally the pick before.
Yes, I think you're spot on. I think Rading's guy. I mean, he checks all of Chris Ballard's boxes, right? He's Senior Bowl. He just has all that build. He's a great athlete. And I think I texted George Brimmer, after that pick, shortly after that pick, and I said to him, you got to feel like Ballard's got something in his back pocket. Now, word comes out on Twitter today that we've been in contact with Eric Fisher later this week, and Leno Jr.'s also been a person that we've contacted. So you got to feel like that there's still some really good, viable veteran options out there. Now with him, after you mentioned me watching the tape and watching him, he's actually now I don't want to get this twisted. I don't want you to think I'm player comping him to Clowney, but the only comparison I would say is when you slide him inside like you do Clowney, he's a much different football player. Mm-hmm. So Clowney had the recognition. We all saw the super highlight reel when he was coming out and blowing somebody up in the backfield as an edge. but Clowney's actually been a better guy inside in the NFL. I mean, he really wreaks havoc. And this guy here, I mean, I'm telling you, he is a freak athlete. I mean, he's long, he's athletic. I hate the fact that in the second round, we drafted somebody who's not going to start week 1. That just drives me nuts. You know, right. I think that's another reason why I go back to the C+. But it sounds like to me that Ballard, they wanted this guy very bad, and they were sweating it out. Like they thought that there was a possibility that somebody else might even pop on them. So that being said, Steve, you can let me know what you think, but I'm a C+ on him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to grade it too much different from you, but I look at it slightly different as why he's getting the grade he gets. He's not going to have an impact for at least the first half of the season. And that's at the earliest if he's coming back. So, I mean, I can't give him too high a grade because I'm not going to see him. I will also, though, I mean, and I'm with you on the injury front, but, I mean, we have to point out Julian Blackmon coming off of an ACL last year, and the two ones that jump in my mind, obviously, are Blackmon, and then in our division is Jeffrey Simmons, who had blown his knee out and, I mean, came back halfway through the season, and they've wreaked havoc. Now, I'm sure there are thousands of players that I'm not thinking of that are injured and they just never come back. I mean, it sucks that he's not going to play. I mean, I'm with you. I think that's the frustrating thing for me would be less of that he's not going to play. It kind of links two of yours together. He's not going to play right away, and we didn't have another second-round pick, and we didn't have a third-round pick. So you kind of have this gap now on you've picked your player in the second round who's not going to play. I do like him. I think it probably does a bit of a disservice to say that he's a D end because when you watched him, he plays everywhere on the line, like you said. Vandy moved him all around. He played for an extremely knowledgeable defensive coach in Derek Mason, and a really good defense at Vandy over the last several years. So, I mean, I like him. I think if he can recover, I mean, it's a good little unit. I know he's already talked with DeForest Buckner, and I think he's already reaching out to Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney, and they speak highly of him. I know I wanted to touch on this when you said that they were sweating bullets. I think it's really interesting for me when I was watching it is when they came up, I think everyone was thinking we were going to trade back. And that pick was in like right away.
Oh, man. It was the quickest card we turned in the whole draft. I mean, it locked.
Shocked me. I didn't even know what was happening really until it happened. But then I was listening, and you name dropped George Bremer, but I was listening to Stephen Holder and Zach Kiefer today or yesterday. And Stephen Holder said that when he talked with some people, the Colts were really sure he was going at some point that he was not going to last. And they specifically pointed out the LA Rams as a team 4 picks behind them that were heavily interested in taking him. So he was going to go in the second round is what it looks like. And they love him. They love him. I hope he develops. I'm with you. I think the biggest part for me is I would have probably liked to trade back just to get some more because I'm used to having more. Ballard always prescribes to the thought that the more darts you throw at the dartboard, the better chance you have of hitting a bullseye. And we didn't have a lot this year. I mean, when we go to the next player, I mean, that's a 4th round pick now. And that's when you get to the territory where he does really well with them. But on the same token, it's a crapshoot at this point now on what you're getting. So, I mean, I like it. I'm on the same wavelength with you, though. I can't give it too high. I can't give it too high because I'm not going to see him. If he were to show up week 1, Zach, I'd probably, I don't know what I would do if suddenly he's like, oh, healed, and he walks out on the field week 1. I just want to see, I have to see the player. Like it's the same with Kwity Paye. I have to see him, preseason something, and it'll help. I mean, we all know, like, as we grade drafts too, that it's our opinion. I used to joke all the time. It's my opinion. It's Zach's opinion. If you don't like it, you can debate us, but come up with your own opinion before you debate us. And you decide what your grades are, and then we can talk, which happens quite a bit sometimes. But so let's move on to the next pick. And I don't have it up in front of me. I'm trying to remember who it is.
It's Colin, tight end at SMU.
Oh, yes. This is my man. Okay.
So this, Stephen, I want to go ahead and I'm going to steal your thunder. But this is my favorite pick of the draft, honestly.
Oh, they know it's my favorite pick. You know it's my favorite pick.
Like this is a real, like this is a Chris Ballard find, in my opinion. The only knock that I could find on him, really, and I tried pretty hard to find a knock on him, honestly, was he struggled a little bit with dropping the football in college. That was it. You know, he had a little bit of that, but as far as just an athlete, a guy who can run premier routes, we all know about what the hybrid tight end can do in today's NFL game. And Frank Reich, with this type of guy, you know, with the ability to come in and kind of learn behind, you know, Jack Doyle, you know, a veteran, he doesn't have to come in from day one and be a star. I think this guy's going to shine sooner rather than later. I mean, he's the next big hit as far as a tight end goes. I think he'll be a big deal for this football team. And I think he's a guy, Steven, to me, he helps us win pretty quickly. You know, I think you're gonna see some plays during this year, and it may not be a lot with him being a rookie and kind of being in that shuffle of that tight end room, but there's going to be a few plays this year, and you're going to be like, that's exactly what I thought he was when Chris Ballard drafted him. You know, he's going to be a guy really, really hard, and he's going to put, you know, I love a guy, Rick Venturi. He's a guy who I've always listened to in the past, and he just has a great football mind. And, you know, he always talks about an ambient guy, a guy that keeps you up at night. Like, we got a game for this guy right here. And I feel like that he can progress into one of those ambient type of receivers. And Ballard, for whatever reason, in the third and fourth round in his drafts, he always hits big. I mean, and you feel like he's done it again. You know, I mean, this was a position of need. We're getting older at that position. And I don't look at Mo Alley Cox, which, by the way, we drafted a tight end. The very next day, he signed his tender.
He got his butt to
notice from me.
Quick.
But that tight end room needs some juice. You know, I think Ballard's been trying to hit on that. He went with Trey Burton. He went with Eric Ebron. He's been trying to find that guy who sticks with this football team. And I feel like that's a great pick, man. I really do. Position of need, a young talent, a mismatch nightmare. And, you know, after Kyle Pitts, this wasn't deemed a great tight end class. And anybody who kind of knows me is in my circle. Selfishly, I wanted Tommy Tremble on our team because I just want to see him destroy people all day long. But really and truly, if you want to talk about a player that helps this football team, I think it's a Colin Granson, and he's a Chris Ballard guy. Small school, he slides a little bit later in the draft. So for me, I give an A- on this pick. He's my highest grade.
Yeah, I mean, I am lockstep with you. You know, he's my favorite pick. I think the listeners know it, because I think I said it. I mean, he does. He checks every box. And I mean, I talked about a few weeks ago surprise cuts. And my surprise cut was going to be Jack Doyle, who I love.
Yep.
But with this, I think it does a couple of different things. That's a possibility. On top of, I don't know if the whole Zach Ertz thing comes to fruition now. I mean, a comp that I heard for him is Zach Ertz, because of the fact that, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, he'll fill the Trey Burton role, but he's really not. He's more fluid. I mean, like you said, he's the kind of tight end that the league is going to. He can take the ball, and he's looking to gain yards after. The drops are an issue. One of the things that when I was doing a little bit more reading, it seemed what he said too was it seems that may have been a one game off. I think he had a horrendous game against Cincinnati where he had a handful of drops. And a lot of what it was, from what I could see, is he was looking ahead. He was looking to make that next move to get up the field, and he wasn't seeing the ball in. You know, we've got a good tight end room, you know, and I'd be interested, not to detour off, but you mentioned Mo Alley Cox too. I love Big Mo. I joke, I say he has clown hands. Like, he's just got these massive hands when he looks like Shaq holding a Nerf football when he grabs the football. But I don't know if he's not, in my mind, he's not a tight end one. I think Grayson can be a tight end one. He's that, and he fits. You said he's a Ballard guy. I think he's a Wright guy too. Wright loves tight ends, and he loves those move tight ends. And like you said too, Ballard has been looking for it. I mean, let's be honest, and it's a Colts podcast. People don't like him now because he's not on the Colts. We've been looking to fill the Ebron role. I mean, the guy had 14 touchdowns? 14 touchdowns. I don't know, it was 14 or 15. That 1 year with Andrew Luck. That's what Ballard wants. That's what Reich wants. I know he, went downhill after that, but I mean, that's the kind of tight end you're looking for him. You're not necessarily looking for Big Mo, who's going to hurdle through the center of the field and run people over. And that's definitely not what this guy is. I love it. And it doesn't hurt that it's that mid round. Ballard shines in the mid round. We all sit here and we can talk about the grades and we can talk about how we feel with it. I'm wearing the shirt today with Darius Leonard. He was rated the worst pick in the entire draft. Everyone loves to talk about that. And now he's probably the number one linebacker in the entire NFL. So, I mean, like you said, there's a reason why we do a podcast and Ballard gets paid millions of dollars on West 56th Street, because he tends to know what he's doing. And when the picks go in really quickly, he tends to know really well. So I'm with you. I'm in lockstep. I love this pick. It is my favorite pick. Probably, I'm a little weird. One of my favorite picks is a later round pick too. The potential's there. We'll talk about him in a minute. But no, I'm with you. I would rate this. This would be up there with Kwity Paye. This would be, probably an A. For me, it's probably an A+. I love the value of it. I love where it's at. So let's talk about the next one. I'm pulling it up because I'm trying to keep it in front of me. Oh, yes. Sean Davis out of Florida. So what are your thoughts about him, man?
So for him, Stephen, I'm not mad at that pick. It's just a good depth signing. Obviously, I think we're set. I mean, if we got Willis and Blackman, I mean, Davis is going to have to be a core special teamer, if he wants to make this football team. But injuries have been a part of it. Willis had a few nagging things last year. Blackman had injuries back in college. So it's nice to have a good young depth signing. I don't have a problem with this signing. I think in this particular moment in the 5th round, you're really just looking for best player available, best fit for your football team, somebody who can come in there and, just add, like we talked about, just that depth signing. So I don't have a lot to say about him. I'm good with it. I don't think it's an either way for me. I think he's a solid pick. There's nobody when we were watching it in the 5th round that thought, well, man, he should have really just done this. I think I probably would have if I were Ballard, even though he, it's clear that he went away from the tackle position. I probably would have thrown a dart at the board, the tackle position, right there. It probably would have been a depth player anyways, but I probably would have thrown a dart at the board there instead of at safety. But I don't have a gripe with it. He seems to be a pretty physical player. He has a nose for the football, and he doesn't mind hitting people. Well, Ballard's big on that. He wants players. He doesn't want guys who not to knock Malik Hooker, and I love Malik Hooker, but Malik Hooker, he didn't want to hit anybody, and I think Ballard wants players that are physical and they're not scared to hit anybody.
What's the old adage, Zach? What is it? It's not ballet.
Exactly.
It's not ballet, and that is what you touched on. It. That is the one thing that I can say for him. For Davis is he is a thumper.
Yeah.
And you need that sometimes. I think I was listening to something today and they were talking about it. It's depth, and competition. And if you've got Blackman and Willis who have been in there all game long, and Derrick Henry's lining up on 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter, maybe you bring Davis in because he's going to come downhill, and you give your guy a break a little bit. I mean, it's tough when you get into the later rounds because you're not real. It's more depth. And you don't know who's going to hit necessarily. But I'm with you on that one. I mean, I think it's a great depth piece. It's a great depth position. We're pretty locked in when it comes to safety, but we've also been really bad about injuries to our safeties and to other positions. So just loading up doesn't hurt. Getting another physical player is interesting to me too, because as we've gone through these first couple of picks, it's a lot of physical players, first two. I feel like if I had made a bet And I told the listeners, I said, I'll bet $50 that they go defense the first two picks. I feel like I would have gotten good odds because it
Exactly.
kind of was surprising. But at the same time, Ballard seems to always tell you what he's going to do without doing it. And he's always talked about the trenches and always talked about the lines. And it seems to me like he has settled into the idea that we're going to, quarterback, get ready. We're going to hit you. We're going to put your ass on the ground as much as we can. I mean, it is, I like it. I mean, I've grown up, and I mean, you too. I mean, we're the same age, just about. We've grown up in a time where the Colts, it's offense, it's offense, it's offense, it's offense, it's all gas, no break. And I love having a good defense. The punch you in the mouth, the physical defense. And it seems that's the way that he's going with the picks.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that you can really tell, I think all along what he has wanted and Frank Reich has wanted is two in the same. They've wanted a great running game and they've wanted a great defense to not put as much pressure on that quarterback, right? I mean, that's only going to help Carson Wentz not playing from behind or always playing in a one-score game where he's not always doesn't always have this pressure to. Andrew Luck was great and we loved him, but he was always having these crazy comebacks in the fourth quarter. Well, we don't want to, we don't want to put our quarterback in that position to have to come back week in and week out. It's like we almost didn't start playing until the last possession of the third quarter. With this football team, it's wired that we can win close football games, man. We can win the old school ugly football games where it comes down to just maybe a field goal wins the game for you, and he doesn't have to ask Carson Wentz to go out there and be a crazy elite, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, all of these types of guys. He can just be a really, really, really good football player, make good decisions, take care of the football, hand the ball off in the fourth quarter and let Jonathan Taylor, finish the game off and ice it out, and have a defense that's capable, if they have to go out on that field, to stop them. And now you're trying to get those defensive ends lined up where, to match your inside. You've got, you got Big Grover and then you've got, D Buck on the inside. If you could ever just get right on that outside with those two defensive ends, or just one defensive end, honestly, you would really have one hell of a defensive line. And I think that is all going to make things so much better, on the back end. It's going to help keep things clean for Darius Leonard. It's going to help our cornerback play. And yeah, I'm all for it, man. I subscribe to the same type of mindset that Ballard has when it comes to that. So, yeah, Davis, cool. And I guess we can go into the sixth pick. You got it in front of you? I actually like this pick a lot, personally.
I've come around on it. I've come around to understand it. I'm sure Zach, as well as everyone else, saw that I was not real loving the pick a couple of days after it. I think I had it as the worst pick in the draft. I've come around to understanding it now. I don't know how highly I grade it, but I've come around to understand it. For those who don't know, if you have been under a rock, it's Sam Ehlinger, the quarterback from Texas. And so my initial thought was, oh my God, I hate this pick. I think I put it out that I didn't like it. But I've come around to understanding it.
Yeah.
I've looked at it from the perspective of, one, you need quarterback depth. The only quarterbacks on the roster are Carson Wentz and Jacob Eason, and the Colts and Ballard have been really steadfast that Eason is nowhere near ready to play. On top of that, you also now have a quarterback coming in who, and I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, someone could throw stones at me. He seems skill set wise to match Carson Wentz obviously way more than Jacob Eason does. And so I think that helps. One of the interesting things I heard was, don't be shocked if he takes the number 2 spot from Eason. There's a possibility there. He's got great leadership skill. I think it's really telling when you look at this draft and you look at last year and you see what Ballard said about when they took Eason and when they took Ehlinger. When they took Eason last year, he was like, pump the brakes, don't call him the Messiah, don't do any of this stuff. And he's not ready. We're not even really going to talk about him. And then this year you have him say about Ehlinger, I don't know what it is, but he has it. So he does really like him. So I've come around to understanding it. It was a needed pick. I think he fits the locker room really well. And I think backup position, whether it's backup or scout team, he's the quarterback that more of what you're going to see in the NFL. That mobile, move the pocket, get out of the mud and kind of work your magic a little bit. And that's what you're going to see a lot in the NFL. So I think he helps the team in different ways. So I've come around to it. Obviously, like I said, I didn't love it to begin with, but you like it. So I want to hear what you have to say about it. See if you can sway me a little bit more.
Yeah, man. I tell you what I like it, Stephen, is just I like the thought of look, let's just be honest. A guy's getting drafted in the 6th round. The chances of him making a football team that's good like let's don't make the mistake. This is not a 3-13 football team. This is a good football team. It's a playoff football team. 6th and 7th rounders making this football team, you got to earn it, right? I mean, so if you're going to throw a dart at the board, I like having some competition at that cornerback position. It doesn't threaten Carson Wentz at all. It's a 6th round pick, so that doesn't upset that quarterback room, and it also holds Jacob Eason accountable. Like, hey, look, this isn't your job. Like, if you ask me just arm talent, Eason's a more talented quarterback, but I don't know that Eason is going to come in and outwork a guy like this. Like this kid, from what I can tell, is absolutely going to do every single thing in his power to make this football team. And I was talking to my dad, after the draft, and one thing I told him was, I said, he's a career backup. He's not a starter, and he never will be. But he's a guy like a Jim Sorgi who will be a career backup, and he works so damn hard, and he does all of the right things that he could probably play 8 or 10 years in the NFL and maybe start a handful of games and just be a career backup, because he's just such a hard worker. He's a smart guy. And I like the element of him being able to move. If we want to throw in a different package, a different wrinkle every once in a while, I'm not big on changing quarterbacks. Right. It drives me nuts, actually. But if you want to have just a wrinkle every once in a while, a team's not expecting it, throw him out there. He's mobile. You can run a little something with him around the edge, maybe pick up a key first down, in a crucial football game.
You can essentially take that Jacoby package that was last year, and you can run the same thing. He could run the sneaks. I'm with you on that, though. I hated the Brissett package. I hated when they started incorporating him actually throwing the ball.
Yeah, that was brutal for me to watch. Like, I was just like winced every time that he threw the football, because you knew he was going to throw it far but not accurate. That's just that's about how it went. But I like him, man. I think I'm going to go on record, and I'm going to say that Sam Ehlinger is going to beat out Jacob Eason for the 2nd spot. I believe
this
that
year.
This year, I think he
mark it down.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, that sounds crazy, but I think this kid comes in. I think he beats out Jacob Eason. I just do. I mean, I think I don't mind Eason, and it sounds like Eason's done a lot of good work. But when you draft a quarterback a year after you take Eason in the 4th round, a kid whose talent was more like a 1st and 2nd round talent, and he hasn't locked up that 2nd round, that 2nd spot yet, that tells me the Colts are just not sure. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Eason comes in and has just one hell of a camp, and he blows them away with what he's learned on the offseason. I know he's out there working with Tom House, trying to get his footwork down, his body right.
He's been out there with Wentz and all them too, right?
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But one thing I know about Ehlinger is he won't get outworked. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I mean, this kid's a hard worker. So I like it. I don't mind it. If you're going to throw a dart in the 6th round, we all know how important it is to have a backup, because Wentz has had trouble staying healthy, at times in the NFL. So you're going to have a guy that's capable of getting on the field. And that's me, man.
I'm with you on him. I mean, you swayed me. You swayed me a little more. I mean, because obviously I agree. He's not going to be outworked. When you watch him in college, when you watch him at Texas, he has the mentality and the build that they like in their players. He's about competition. He's about working hard. And I mean, you are right. If anything could be said with Eason, coming out of the draft, it was his work ethic. That was the biggest thing that was repeatedly talked about, was how much of a work ethic does he have? Maybe it does light a fire under him, but it's a great point that you make, that he's taking a quarterback in the 4th round, and then you turn around and you take another one. Why doesn't he? And all this talent, he has all the talent in the world. Why hasn't he locked up that backup position yet? Still, it's a good question. I don't know if he'll beat him out, but that's a good bet, man.
We'll see, man. Stay tuned.
An interesting one. It's an interesting one. Okay, so this, I believe the next one is this is my guy. Okay, so it's the 7th round pick. Man, it's pick 229, and I love it. Okay, if I'm going to take a flyer, okay, it's Mike Strachan. Strachan, I think is how you pronounce it. Strachan, how you pronounce his last name, out of Charleston. It's not college, for the listeners. That's not College of Charleston. Okay, that's not that one. This is straight Charleston. It's in West Virginia. I had never heard of it, and I follow Division I AA, and he's Division II, so that's probably why I haven't heard of it. But I love it, because if you, like you said with Ellinger, if you're going to take a flyer late, you take a flyer on someone who has tremendous upside. The guy is 6'6", 225, and ran a 4.4.
Yeah.
Good God. And the 4.4, they said, I heard this today. They said that the 4.4 was at the pro day for West Virginia, and he did the bench press right before and took no break and went and ran his 40. They said he normally runs a 4.3. So he's big, he's tall. And if you take a player, when you take a player from a lower division, you take a Carson Wentz, you take a Joe Flacco, or, let's go way back, Steve McNair. When you go those players, you want to see them, they need to dominate at the division they're at, because they're playing lesser talent. And this guy did. I think it was 18 touchdowns over the last 2 years. Oh my God. If you can get him, if he can make the roster, it's not this year. It's probably not next year. He's going to have to develop. He's going to have to kind of grow into his body more. He's going to have to learn how to play against better competition. But man, if he actually is one of those rare gems that pops, he's got the build to do it. He's got the makeup. I get really excited about it. I really like it. Also, we don't have the best of luck when it comes to receivers. We just, outside of Pittman, we really haven't. You can look at it and you can say, we have Pittman, we have Pascal, we have Hilton, we have Campbell, we have Doolin, we have all these players. But we had a lot of that last year too, and the year before, and then they get dinged up, and then suddenly Marcus Johnson's starting 2 games, or DeMichael Harris is coming in, and I love DeMichael. I've had a chance to talk with him a little bit before, but receiver seems like something we can never have too much of, just because of the way that it breaks. So I get giddy talking about him. I don't know how you said. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so where I'm at, I'm kind of the same with you on that, Steven. Here's what I like about him. I like that when you're taking a 7th round guy, the one thing that you don't have to worry about is the physical tools being there, right? They're just there. You've either got it or you don't. He's imposing. Even when you watch him, I know he's playing against lesser competition, but his build, his makeup, he's an imposing receiver. However, how does that translate? And this is what makes it so hard, and this is what life of an evaluator and a scout would be so difficult. How can I translate how he plays in the Division II game all the way to the pro football game? Yeah. How does it translate into winning football, making a team, helping this football team win? And I think he's got a really good shot. At very least, he's a practice squad stash. You can develop him. You can maybe at some point get the best out of him. If he can ever develop his route tree, I think this is a guy, especially goal line, and short yardage. I mean, you can go out there and just to throw that ball up there and say, man, just use that huge catch radius that you've got and just pull it down for us, So I do like it. I don't know that I love it. But I don't hate it. I mean, it's just a solid pick. I mean, in the 7th round, you're looking for something, I mean, like you said, you're looking for anything you can find. And what stands out to me is just how that big of a man can run that fast is amazing. It's almost mind blowing that someone could run that fast and be that large. But I think he's 6'5". I know you said 6'6". I think he's 6'5", 6'6". I mean, that's a huge receiver.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's 10 pounds from being a tight end, what I mean? But still being able to run that fast. So that's impressive. And we'll just have to see how that plays. I'd be interested to see what Frank Reich does with them. Yeah. And it keeps everybody on that back end, like you mentioned. You got Desmond Patton and all those guys, fight 5th and possible 6th spot. It keeps those guys on.
I didn't even think of Pat, man.
They're coming to camp and they're fighting, to make that final spot, which I like. I love that competition in that wide receiver, because I feel like wide receiver in the NFL, that's one of the quickest turnovers for any position, just because, you're good one year and then the next year, you just fade away. So I like
Stevie Johnson.
Exactly. Yeah. I like to have that competition. But that's about all I got to say about that. I guess we'll pivot into the last pick. Is it Will Freeze? Is that how you pronounce it?
It's either Freeze or Fries. I think it's Freeze. I think you're right. I mean, I'm good with it. I don't have a whole lot to say with him.
Yeah. I mean, then again, you get a guy who's a guard, you get a camp body who's going to come in and fight for a position for his life to try to. He's played a lot of tackle actually in college, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen in the NFL. From every evaluator that I listened to, especially when they called his name out in the draft, they said he's a guard in the NFL. I mean, that's just the way it is. Just because I guess of his arm length. I don't hate it. I mean, you're in the 7th round. You're just hoping and praying that you got a camp body that can come in there. And, if you get injured late in the season, you need somebody to go out there and play football for you. You hope a guy like this can make the football team and help you win just one game, even just get you through one quarter of a key game. So I don't have a problem with it. Kind of odd to me, in my opinion. The position I thought was the most important position for us to draft was the very last pick that we took. Yeah. But then again, we did what we had to do. We went out there and got a little bit of depth on the inside, and man, we'll see what happens. But all in all, for me, and I'll get your take on Will as well. But I would say it was a solid draft. I wouldn't say it was a great draft. But then again, Ballard has a way of having these drafts that don't look like great day one. You look back at it in a couple of years from now and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is why he's Chris Ballard. And this is why I'm Boyd doing a podcast right now, So, I mean, he has a way of pulling those guys out and getting the most out of those guys. And really, I think he does a really good job, and he doesn't get enough credit for it, identifying players that fit his system. So let's say, for instance, we'll go back to Deo for just a quick argument. That Deo might not be a second rounder for half of the league. He might not be a second rounder, but for Chris Ballard and what he's trying to do, he has these key positions in his defense that he needs. We all know he needs the nickel. He needs Kenny Moore. He needs the Forrest Buckner. He now needs that edge rusher with Kwity Paye. So I think he's really, if nothing else, he's told the guys in that room, the pass rushers, hey, your job's not secure. Like I don't know what you think. I don't know if you're working hard this off season, but if you're Kamoko Toure, if you're Taekwon Lewis, if you're Akadi Muhammad, you better work hard this year, because it's going to be a dogfight to who gets that final spot or two in the defensive end room. So all in all, pretty good draft though, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a weird draft. It was a weird feeling draft outside of the Paye pick. It felt weird only because everything that we had talked about leading up to it, as people who kind of get to talk about the Colts, of the positions that we felt they needed, they didn't go after any of them, really. I mean, they didn't go after O-line. They didn't go after tackle. They passed on a tackle. And I think that's an interesting one. I know you were a big fan of him, but there are also those reports that he didn't have the strongest work ethic. So I think that could have played a part into it. I don't know, but it felt weird. It did feel it felt kind of like this odd draft. It feels like the kind of draft that 2 years from now we're going to look and be like, man, Pay or Deo, they've popped. And maybe one of these later picks, Grayson, he's popped. And I think it's really important to note what you said with it too, which is he drafts according to who fits what he wants, not necessarily what other people think. Darius Leonard, we always talk about that pick. He was not someone who was rated that high. But I mean, now everyone kicks themselves because they didn't take him. And he's probably the best linebacker, if not top 3 in the entire league. So, I mean, I think it's a good draft. I think it was very evident that I'm going to say this, it's going to sound weird, that Chris Ballard most definitely watched the Super Bowl. And he looks at it, I think he looked at it more of, I don't have to get these lovely playmakers like, OJ Howard and Mike Evans. What won the Bucs the game was they put Mahomes on his backside all day, and he was not allowed to get comfortable. And I think that's what he wanted. He wants to develop into one of the most feared physical teams that's in the NFL. And that's not something us as Colts fans, like we were talking about earlier, is ever really used to. So, I mean, I like the draft. It felt weird, one of the things I was going to say this too is it's interesting to note there's a whole lot of talk about corner and a talk about rock. And I'm a big Rock Ya-Sin fan. They didn't take a single corner. If you're talking about giving a vote of confidence to your corners, they did that. Because they've repeatedly told that they really like him, and they didn't go out and they didn't draft any corners. So I mean, it was just an interesting draft. It was tough to get too high, too low, really on any pick, because you're just trying to kind of settle in. So I do want to say one more thing about the draft before we move in to take a couple of social media questions. Is the draft in general? I want to know, Zach, what in the first round? Let's go first round pick. What was your least favorite pick outside of the Colts, and your favorite pick outside of Kwity Paye in the first round?
Okay.
I'm going to put you on the spot. We didn't talk about this prior, but I'm interested.
Oh, it's okay. I think that, and as much as I hate to say it, because I'm not a Bears fan. I mean, the Bears getting Justin Fields to me is just at hindsight's 2020, right? If you'd have told me that the Colts would have had a chance to move up just 10 spots to get him, I would have been all for that, honestly.
Yeah, we talked. He was my favorite quarterback in the draft.
I think that was an amazing pick. I mean, Justin Fields is just. I think Justin Fields, outside of Trevor Lawrence, is probably going to have the best professional career. I just do. I think he's that good. He's a guy who's just always been. He was the number 2 guy coming out of high school. He was the number 2 guy in college. He really was the number 2 guy going into the draft, and he just got kind of pushed down. And I feel like that he was a victim of his own success. We just saw it for so long. We stopped appreciating what type of talent was. I mean, a super accurate guy, a guy who can move. And today, you got to have a guy who's at least mobile and shifty. You don't have to have, Lamar Jackson necessarily, but you have to have a guy who can move, extend plays. Had we had that last year with Phillip Rivers, I mean, there's no telling what would have happened in that Buffalo game, honestly. I mean, we would have had a much better chance of winning those critical football games. And then, the head scratcher, I guess every single year, the Raiders never cease to amaze me.
You never know what they're going to do, man.
Yeah, I mean, they march to their own beat, but Leatherwood right there, I'm thinking to myself, really and truly, in theory, they could have probably gotten Leatherwood with their second round pick.
That's where I wanted him. I wanted the Colts to take him in the second round.
Like they could have gotten Leatherwood there and still take somebody. I know they always take their own guy and they just do and talk about picking for their team and they don't care about what the board says. I mean, nothing says that more than the Raiders, but
they do it all the time.
They do it all the time, and the bad part is they're not right. So
that's the tough part. Yeah, you don't hit on it and then you look stupid.
You're not hitting on it, you're gonna have. I mean, you're gonna have some pushback when you go for Ruggs and you go, Farrell, and now you're going for Leatherwood. Regardless, I think that was probably my least favorite pick. What about you?
So I love the Justin Fields pick, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least say that because half of the Lounge Room Network is Bears fans. We've kind of discovered this. So a third are Bears fans, a third are Packers fans, and then there's the rest of us. Yeah. And so, the place went insane when they traded up for him. But because you picked him, I'm going to go different. I'm going to go with who I actually think, and I love Justin Fields, but I actually think Trey Lance is probably going to be the best pro out of all the quarterbacks taken this year. I think the position that he got drafted in and where he's going to, the team, the talent, the coaching, the stability of it, I think that's what does hurt Justin Fields a little bit is I don't know the stability there in Chicago. As much as I love Justin Fields, I've kind of been on record that I think Trey Lance is probably going to be – I think he's going to be better than Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is the next coming of Andrew Luck. I don't think he can turn around the Jaguars, and do these amazing things with a team that has never really shown the ability to consistently win. So, I mean, I love Trey Lance. I'm different with who I didn't like. I was totally not a fan of the Jamar Chase pick to the Bengals.
Okay.
My issue with it was Penny Sewell was there, and you had a very glaring need. And I kind of prescribed to the idea that you can have all the weapons in the world. Joe Burrow can't throw touchdowns from his butt and from his back. And he blew his knee out last year because you couldn't protect him. And you had probably the best lineman in the draft sitting there, and you didn't take him. So, I mean, I just didn't like it because I felt like they had a massive glaring need that they just overlooked. It was my least favorite. I mean, it sounds weird because he's an amazing talent. And I'm sure he'll do great, but it was my least favorite one in the entire first round.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, okay. So we're going to answer, we're kind of starting, we're trying to, I always joke, we try to keep it, a little around an hour, maybe a little bit more so you guys pay attention. But we want to always, since I've started the podcast, through all the changes, through everything, Zach gets to participate now in his very first ever social media sessions. We've always put out for questions. We've always asked for them. So it's important to remember that social media sessions is powered by One Call Technology, which is our amazing sponsor. One Call Technology is a telecommunications company with over 100 years of experience in that field. I joke all the time. You guys will eventually understand what telecommunications is, but right now you don't. So I always say what it is. Telecommunications is basically phone and internet service. One Call Technology and their staff, they look over phone bills. It's what they do. If your company is paying too much, you go to onecalltech.com, inquire, send them a bill. They look through it for free. It doesn't cost anything for them to do it. They make sure that you're getting the best service, that you're getting the least expensive service if that's what you want. But they do all this for no charge to you. Then they can get you set up with exactly what you need. If you're thinking this is something that you want to at least kind of inquire about, like I said, go to the website, send an email. I always joke, I work there. Adam over at Bama Lounge works there. You reach out, you may get one of us on the phone. So it's an important thing. Try it out. So we always, Zach, this is the first time you get to do this, and I'm so excited for you, man. Like I'm giddy because I love this stuff. So since I started the podcast, I've always asked for questions. Everybody knows I'm a huge Kevin Bowen fan. So I totally stole it from him, and he knows it too because I've told him. He always asks for Twitter questions, and I feel like it's a great way to interact with people. I've always viewed it as I'm not talking at people. I like to talk with them. And so when they ask questions, it's just fun to try to answer them because some of them are really off the wall. I don't know if you go on Colts Facebook, but it's a terrifying place sometimes. And some of the questions you get on there are frightening. And we get a lot from Facebook. So I always tell them, they can send it to me, they can send it to you. We snap it, we put it in, we give them a shout out on the show, and we try to answer the question. We try to answer a handful of questions most episodes. So the first one comes from Jeremy Williams, and you'll like this. Why did we wait until the 7th round to pick a lineman? What do you think?
Well, I think we talked about it earlier. We hit on it. It really just simply was. It was just a depth pick. I mean, I don't think that this year, for whatever reason, Chris Ballard did not view this tackle class the same as really the consensus was that this was a very good tackle class. And we mentioned earlier that the Adams, got that pick right before who may have been on their radar, but just by how fast that we turned that pick in, when we took Deo, I don't know that we wouldn't have taken Deo anyways. I just don't think that we were motivated. And I believe that Ballard is a man who's always got a plan. And I believe all along he felt like if it didn't fall his way, I think he always had Eric Fisher in his back pocket. I think he always had just started that dialogue, had already getting that going.
That's such a great point.
And I think he had always had that kind of lined up, and that was kind of him hedging his bet, saying, okay, if this doesn't work out, I think he probably had already had internal discussions with his agent and said, what are you thinking? Like, what's the structure? Let's just get parameters. We don't need to go in depth, but let's just get how long are you thinking? What type of money are you talking about? And he had a good gauge on that. And I think he felt good enough in this draft to take who he wanted to take and still have the flexibility to go out and sign a veteran guy. So I think that's probably why that we did not, in this instance, we waited this late to sign him, and he just kind of fell in our lap, and he was just a depth signing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on it. I mean, he's not. I always joke with the listeners. Ballard is not a stupid man. He totally has a plan, and I love the conspiracy theory a little bit there, like that he's already spoken with him, and he probably has. And then you hear the stuff with Leno Jr. out of Chicago getting cut today. You see all the connections. Strausser's here. He used to work with him. Ballard knows him from Chicago. There's a ton of connections there. Maybe he always felt that it was just going to be addressed in free agency. I don't know, but it's a depth piece that they drafted. Ballard has a plan. He's not going by the seat of his pants. He has some sort of plan. I mean, would it be one of the things, and it was Cody from Bring the Juice who I was talking with, would it be the worst thing that Tevy starts the first, handful of games until Fisher is ready? If we do sign him, maybe he's not ready right away. Is it the worst thing to give Tevy some reps? So, I mean, great question. So, and that's a theme of a lot of the questions is O-line. So I'm going to skip some of them because some of them are very interesting. So another one is from William Mattern. What positions do you think we need? And he clarifies, no bullshit, to focus on the most to fill and rebuild the line on all three sides of the ball for the upcoming season.
So just main positions of need, is that the question he's asking?
Yeah. I mean, he says all three sides of the ball. So I'm assuming he's talking, what are some positions on offense, defense, and special teams?
Well, I mean, special teams, I think we are actually pretty good in a pretty good spot with special teams. I mean, you brought on Sean Davis, and you'd have to think a guy like Sean Davis will probably be a part of that special teams, moving forward if he wants to earn his spot. I think left tackle is a number one, and a number two, and a number three, and a number four, and a number five. Honestly, it is a position of need. I actually believe that quarterback, left tackle, and edge. I would go that way. I know a lot of people are quarterback, edge, then left tackle. I feel like there's nothing more important than protecting your investment. If you're going to go through the trouble of trading letting some of that draft capital go, bringing a guy in who's had a little bit of a history of being injured in the past. I think you need to protect him and put him in the best possible position to win football games. And we have seen, last year with our line and that continuity, how that was. I actually think Fisher is interesting, but I think Leno coming, I think that just happened. I don't think anybody saw that happening. Mm-hmm. And I think Leno probably has the upper hand because he has kind of this reputation for being an Iron Man. He doesn't get hurt a lot. He's played a lot of games. He's 1 year younger, probably would command a little bit less money, has a history. You mentioned with Chris Strausser earlier. I think for me, maybe not the most popular. I would probably take him slightly over Fisher, honestly. I'm good with either one, to be honest. Either one of those guys, I feel like we really did something good. But regardless, if we sign a veteran, I want it to be at least a 2-year deal. We don't need to go. I just don't want to do a 1-year deal and be doing this again next year. Let's get set up for the next couple of years. And then that gives us the flexibility to, in the draft at some point, to hit on somebody at that left tackle position, maybe next year or the following year. So I think defense, though, to answer his question, at all 3 levels on defense, I think we need I think a cornerback would be great. Yeah. I just think you can't ever have enough depth out there. I know you mentioned earlier that you're a Rock fan.
I'm alone on that island sometimes.
We're going to disagree on that.
See, there it is.
I'm not going to be a Rock fan, and I'd love for Rock to come out this year and prove me 100% wrong. But yeah, I'm not. I think that we need something in that cornerback room. That's why I thought that TJ Carey signing was so important for this football team. I thought it galvanized that back room. And if Rock doesn't work out, well, you've got a guy who's done it last year and kind of took over for him at the end of the season. So, yeah, those would be my top positions at need.
Yeah, I agree. Their left tackle it's a massive position. And I love it because I think you texted me when we were talking about it too, when we said, I don't want a 1-year deal. I don't want to be doing it again next year. We're already doing so many things again next year. You're going to have the TY thing next year again, and all those. So, if I'm being honest, I'm a Rock fan. Corner is a need still. Corner is. We do have Marvell Tell coming back. That'll be interesting. You got Xavier Rhodes coming back. We'll see what happens there. I like Rock only because I still feel he's really young. I feel like, and he's played a ton of snaps. So, I don't know. He's been out there on the one-on-one with their best receivers the last 2 years. And his biggest issue is he's so freaking handsy. That's the biggest issue. He's got to stop grabbing people when he thinks he's beat. Or he's, the worst thing for me with him is he's in position. He's got great position. And he just overthinks it and he grabs them. Like he's where he's supposed to be. So it's okay. So last question, we're going to answer this last one because I think it's a really interesting one, and it kind of touches on what we talked about with the draft in general and stuff like that. Is this comes from Evan Burke, and he said, "What has Ballard and company done to make everyone question their decision making this year?" Because I don't know about you, but it does feel like people want to place them on at least a lukewarm seat, and there's been a ton of questions about, obviously, with free agency and them really kind of setting it out, and then the way the draft kind of worked out. I still don't question him. He hits more than he doesn't. The only picks, if you look a lot, his worst picks were his first year here when he didn't have his scouts in place. So, it's okay to question him. But do I think he's anywhere near a lukewarm or a hot seat? No, I think he's probably the best GM in the NFL. But what do you think?
So this is a great question. I actually was thinking about this other day on my own. And, you get a lot of people's opinion, especially on Twitter. It's kind of a quick, impulsive decision. When you tweet something out, you maybe regret it, even 15 minutes later. But the one thing about it is it's important for fans to know that the way I feel is we can say something in the decision-making process with Ballard And that doesn't mean we're not Colts fans. That doesn't mean that we're not, we're coming down on them or we don't believe in them. We can disagree. That's what makes football great, right? We have this conversation. That's why we're doing this podcast, because we're giving our opinion. At the end of the day, I think it's most people's opinion as Colts fans that Ballard does a damn good job, man. I mean, he really does. I disagree with his philosophy at times. And the only reason I would say that is that I just think to truly win football games year in and year out, there's a time and a place to make a power move, and I don't know when that is. I can't say that. I can't sit there and say, well, it was this year or it was that year, but there's a time and a place to make a power move, and you're going to have to overpay in free agency. There's just no way around it. Yeah. I mean, that's what free agency is. It's a bidding war for a commodity where there's only one really elite player and a lot of teams want them. So I guess I would question, if I had any questions, why would you put yourself in such a great financial position to not ever be able to execute with that? If that makes any sense, Stephen.
Like, I think that's great. I think that's the big question everybody has.
Sure.
Is why do you save that money and then you don't spend it really? I mean, on the flip side of that coin for me, I think the only question that I have is he is a great drafter. We joke about John Gruden earlier and how he is a horrendous drafter. But Ballard is great, but you put yourself in a bind going into the draft this year, and you had to hit on you really needed to hit on the vast majority of your picks. I mean, you had Irsay talking about it, saying, I feel like we're going to find a left tackle, a corner, and a wide receiver in the draft. That's a ton of pressure. And I'm with you that I think the power play move, and you can kind of tell me what you mean. My mind is the power play move isn't necessarily like the trade that we pulled off for Carson Wentz, which I think is going to be a great trade, or the trade that we pulled off for Buckner, which was an amazing trade. I think it's you go spend big money on like an Allen Robinson. Yeah. You have a position of need and you go get the best player on the market to do it. And you do it. That's it. I live in Tennessee, and the chirp that I hear right now is the power play they're trying to make is Julio Jones. Like, that's what you hear all the time. And that's John Robinson makes those power plays. But on the flip side, they don't always, he made that one with Jadeveon Clowney last year and it did not work. So I'm with you. I think that's the frustrating thing as a fan is you have consistently the most cap space and we don't really spend it. And we can say that it's because you're banking money for these big contracts for Leonard and Nelson and Smith and all these players. But I think that's kind of been a little bit debunked that we can do those and still have plenty of money. So, and you have this, $200 billion deal coming in like 2 years. So, I mean, that was a great question because you definitely hear it a lot. You hear people question him and question Reich a lot. So, okay. So we're going to bank the rest of the questions. And if you guys like this, so I want to drop this too really quick. If you're super pumped if you're like me and you're really pumped about Kwity Paye, or you're like Zach and you're super pumped about Grayson, you can go onto our Twitter page and click on it and go to Fanatics. You pull up the little link tree, you go to Fanatics, and you can go buy their jerseys because we're sponsored by Fanatics and we get a little bit of a rub if you guys do that. So go buy their jerseys, go buy whatever jersey you want, buy a hat. I don't know. You can find whatever you want with it. But so the draft is over now. And, we're I think 10 days from the schedule release, 10, 12 days. Obviously, we'll break that down when that comes out. Me and Zach have talked a little bit about different guests that we're going to try to have come on, and try to fill a little bit of this time, try to fill some of this gap between, actual football. We've got things that we want to touch on. We got things that we want to talk about. We'll have people on. We'll do all sorts of different things. We'll continue to interact with you guys. I think it's really important. Everybody knows where you find me at if you want to be involved in the social media sessions. Stephen Burton 86. You can also go to No Horsing, at No Horsing. Zach, I think, why don't you tell them yours because they may not know it quite yet. Because you can hit Zach with them too, and he'll send them over to me. We'll get them plugged in. That way you guys can be fully interacting with us.
Yeah, guys. So if you want to check me out, I'm at Colts Nation 365. It'll actually say my name up there, Zach Boyd. DM me, man. I love interacting with the fan base. That's probably my favorite part. That's why I do it, because I am a fan. I just love talking about football. I've been a Colts fan for over 30 years, and I just love it. It's in my blood, and it's just never going to go away. So anytime I can get a chance to meet new people, answer questions, I'll try to answer questions. Yeah, I do. I have a family. I do work, so I can't get to them always the fastest. But like Steven said, this is when he mentioned that we were going to do, some fan questions. I got excited, man. It's one of my favorite parts about this is just the people, and just having that Colts community and building something special. So I look forward to engaging with you guys. Share it with somebody, man. I encourage you guys, if you know a Colts fan out there, say, hey, man, you're riding down, you're on a weekend trip. Just pop us on, listen to us on our podcast, give us a shot, see what you think. And even if you disagree with us, that's great, man. Let us know where your head's at. I always love to say, hey, you know what, man, I had this guy and he told me something. I never thought of it that way. And it was just such a great take on the way he looked at it. So yeah, I'm just excited about this. This is the beginning of our podcast, but I think we're going to have a great show, Steven. And I look forward to just kind of moving forward and branching out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Like I said, once when we talked last time, when I did the episode last week, I mentioned at the end, because I was by myself, that I had someone in mind. Obviously, it was Zach. I had already spoken with him and continued to speak to him throughout last week, throughout this week. So we're really excited to kind of get it going. And like you said too, share it, or subscribe. And I feel the need to say, if you have an iPhone now, and you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, it is no longer subscribe. Apparently, it is follow. It's a little button in the top corner. It's no longer that beautiful purple button that I always talk about. It's this weird little arrow. So hit that too, because we're on there. Give us a little review. Give us 5 stars. You want to. Just do that. And as we get through this kind of this mud and this muck, we're going to continue to bring you guys the best content we can. And it's just important to remember why, like I say every time, we're Colts fans. Y'all are Colts fans. Remember why you became a Colts fan, and you'll be okay. Just breathe. It's a long off season till we get to actual smacking of pads, especially with this off season. So that's kind of all that I have. I like to always say it's really important to remember that I love you, Zach loves you. I'm out.
Thanks, guys.